Good evening. We'd like to welcome you to our open house tonight. For some of you, there is very little credibility here on the stage because you don't know either one of us, but we'll get to that in just a minute. We're glad you came. We're doing something just a little bit different this year with this little keynote here at the beginning. But we're glad you're here, and we hope this helps you see a little bit into what our vision is of education a little bit. As we go through tonight, it's not really just a presentation. It's kind of a presentation, classroom, conversation. We'll be doing a number of different things here in the next 22 minutes, but we do really appreciate you all coming here. I'll start and introduce, I'll just say I'm Matt Bertasso, I'm the principal here. Mr. Keller here is a former teacher here at Highlands, somewhat of a fixture until 4 years ago. And Chuck Keller was, good round of applause. Graduate of Thomas More and taught for 34 years, most of those years here at Highlands. He was one of my English teachers when I was here, and I had a great time. There are lots of things that I remember from his class. We'll even be talking about some of that tonight. And it's a pleasure to have him here with us. I saw one of the articles he wrote that was published with Fort Thomas Matters, and after reading that, I knew he was the one to help me out with this thing tonight. So I'll let him speak a little bit, but welcome to Mr. Chuck Keller.
Well, now it's my turn to introduce Matt, and then we have some, not yet, but in a second. Now, I had Matt in class when he was 13 or 14 years old. I looked like I was in the Bee Gees. I had hair, the beard, the whole thing, and fast forward evolution, now I'm in the Bruce Willis lookalike club. But Matt was there. He took off from here and went to college in Idaho, and then did his student teaching in Washington State, then over to Virginia, then to Indiana, back to Idaho, then to here. It's like a game. Where in the world is Matt Bertasso? So we have that. Matt is also a musician, was band director, became the IT guy for the school, so he was the go-to guy on how to turn things off and on. And became a principal at a school in Idaho, and from the ground up. So he built it from the ground up, and then and now he's back. Now he's back home. We hope we wish him all the best. So to start though, when you come to school, hi Ted, you have these bell ringers, and that's what we definitely want tonight is a bell ringer. So at 6, I'm going to ask you to hit the gong, and then at 6:52, I'm going to ask you to hit the gong again. I want you to just wail on it. Just whack that sucker. Just give it a good one. That was good.
It's a learning experience.
It's a learning experience, yes. I know, I've never played a gong before, but now I have. Thank you. All right.
First of all, we haven't really rehearsed, so bear with us. We kind of want to bring up the idea of why learn? Why do we go to school? Why do we do these things? Why even spend the millions and billions of dollars into public education? Why do we ask questions? Why do we want answers? All these things come back and forth, and really the whole drive is why are we learning? Why are we having our kids go through this experience? And as we talked about this a lot, the idea of questions really came out as something that we thought was an important piece.
Right, like what color is an orange? Depends on when it's picked, of course, but what time's the noon train leave, those kinds of things. And there is research that chocolate chip cookies are addictive. It just came out this past week. Really? Because I ate 2 of those for lunch for 34 years. That was it. That was my lunch. So we have all these questions. Why? They're good questions.
And so because we had all these questions, we decided we needed public schools to help us do this. And public education, in a lot of ways, hasn't changed a bit since it started, and in other ways, it's completely different. And as we've gone through this process of looking at, well, how do we learn? Why do we learn? we realize that there's a lot of things that we do very different than what we ever did before. We have all this technology and stuff in our schools that really was a game changer for education. And as we use it and as we dive into it more, we can use it to more effectively teach. But education tends to be a little bit behind the times when it comes to technology.
It only took 30 years to get this out of the bowling alley and into schools. So thinking about that learning curve, you know, we still might be a little behind, but I think we need to speed that up a little bit. So, but do you remember those things? God, I love the overhead. It was so much fun to play with.
Did you do shadow puppets?
I did shadow puppets, yeah, I did all those things, yeah.
So as we think of the vision of Fort Thomas Schools, rich in tradition, focused on the future, there's a lot of things that we still do because it's just really good practice. And we have teachers, as I walk through the halls here, that are giving great lessons, and they're teaching our students, and they're doing things that they would have done in a one-room schoolhouse hundreds of years ago, but they're still very effective. And then I see other things where they're bringing in technology and they're connecting with people across the world that there's no way we could have done that even 25 years ago. And all of those things come together to create a learning experience that is totally different than what many of us experienced as children. This one's yours.
Okay. I'm the son of a carpenter. I like these things. So we have a task for somebody here in the audience, and I really think, oh, Mr. Fraley, you come on up. I picked a number between A and 0, and you're it. Come on up here, and I want you to have a seat at this table. And I have a task for you, and I did this because he is one of the cleverest people I know. You know, we have great conversations at Kroger. I have here, ladies and gentlemen, a block of wood. This is regular 2x4 with a sinker nail in it, just sticking up like that. Regular. I just got these at Lowe's. And I'm going to put this here. Have a seat, please. And thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, it won't be any time. This will be the only time. And I have here a dozen nails. Now, here is the task for you. You cannot bend, move this in any way. It has to stay stationary. And your task then is to balance all of these nails on the head of this nail. Okay? So that is the task. So we're going to let him take off on this for a while, and we'll be checking back in with him to see how that's going, okay? All right? And then maybe if you need some help, we'll do a tag team and we'll get somebody else, okay? No, you cannot Google this. Good question, though.
We're all wired to learn. If you think about watching a child learn how to walk, talk, eat, all those things, we see that we have this mindset to learn, and we want to learn. And for some reason, when we get to like first grade, suddenly our kids start to lose that desire to learn. And we have to try to force it almost onto them. And so there's something that happens between those opening years of life to the time that they get into high school where they kind of lose that desire to learn. And so the question is, why do we lose that desire to learn? What is it about those formative years that is so ingrained in us that we want to learn?
Oh, no helps. No.
Do we have cheaters?
We're working on it.
Okay. So,
at least yet.
As we started to learn hundreds of years ago, we realized, you know what, if we know all this stuff, we need to figure out a way to tell people about it. And so people would tell one another. And then they said, you know what, if we wrote this down, then we wouldn't have to keep telling the same story over and over again. So we started writing it down. But then we realized if we wanted to share that with somebody else, we had to write it down again, and it became hard. And so we got this Gutenberg press, this big piece of machinery that allowed us to duplicate information quickly. And when I showed Mr. Keller this picture, both of us were kind of like, that's the moment. That was one of the most pivotal moments for education, because now information can be shared. And it sets up this trend that we can give information to one another and learn from it. So let's talk a little bit learning experiences.
Oh.
Oh, did you want to say something?
No, I'm with you on the printing press.
Okay.
That changed everything. Okay.
So if we talk about learning and experiences just a little bit, both of us were here at Highlands. I was here as a student, Mr. Keller as a teacher. So one of the things we want to share here really quickly are some of the things that were most, that stood out the most for us in the learning environment as a teacher and as a student. So what teaching experiences or what activities in your classroom still stand out as the best activities you?
We'll have to ask them because they suffered through it. But when I first started teaching in 1979, 1980, it was a very different world. You know, everything was very structured. It was lecture-oriented. It was a sit-and-get kind of thing. We opened up the heads of students, poured things in, and they went out, and we hoped that they were better people. But it wasn't, it's something about it always bothered me, that we just weren't getting there. We weren't getting there. And then here at Highlands, we started the American Studies program, and that was a blend of American literature and American history. And the principal at the time just said, just go, do, enjoy, have fun, let me know if you need anything. And we did. And eventually our curriculum became the state curriculum for American Studies. And it was inventive. It was creative, and we gave a lot of power to students to create things and to explore things and come back and tell us what they learned. And we all learned together. All I have to do is say the debates. And people who went through those things know what a nightmarish experience that could be, to debate in front of a group of your peers and to stand your ground. So when we started to see that shift to student-centered, then everything started to change, and then my thinking started to become a little more, became radically more progressive. And I wanted to break even more rules. But that's my nature.
If anybody didn't know that already.
Right, exactly.
The faculty here at Highlands would probably say that's in my nature as well.
Good.
Break the rules a little bit. As a student, I was able to take both the world civilization and or world studies and American studies during my high school years, and I would say some of those are still the pieces that stick out the most to me in my learning, because they were focused on a learning experience. They were focused on relevance. We were connecting our English and our history. We were doing things that I still reference today in my part of my learning experience. So I would definitely say the things that were most relevant and where I got to choose maybe who the person was I was going to research, the book I was going to read, etc. Those were the pieces that stuck out the most. At the time, I probably had no idea what student-centered meant, but looking back now as an instructional person, I would definitely say that the activities that were student-centered were the ones that had the most impact.
Our thinking has developed over time, you know, and in the arc of our educational progress, you know, everything changes, and I think all for the better. So let's check in over here. How you doing?
About the same as before.
Really? Okay, so let me ask you, what kind of questions are you asking about trying to solve this particular problem?
Really? How am I going to balance this without any tools?
Yeah, how? A how question's good. How are you going to do it without tools? Yeah, it can be done.
It can.
Any other questions? How many times have things fallen off? Only once or twice. That's good. That's not bad. That's not bad. What do you want to get some help? Okay. All right. Let's get John Wire. You want to come on up and help? Come on up, John. Yeah, come on up. Yeah, I know he doesn't really want to do that. Nobody wants to be singled out like this, but it really is kind of a fun thing. Now in history, yeah, John is on the board. It's just as a point of reference, I did play his wedding, and I played your wedding. Oh, and I think I played your wedding too, didn't I? Yeah, I played your wedding as well. Yeah, how are you? All right, so John, here's the task again, balancing all these nails on the head. You two can collaborate and try to figure that out. Now, he has things laid out in a square here, so I don't know if that's going to work or not, but, you know, that's up to you. Okay. Mr. Pertasso?
So Mr. Keller was teaching at this time. I was a student when the Kentucky Education Reform Act came out. And this is one of the prominent statements, we might say, the mission of this, or vision, is that all students are capable of learning. Interesting enough, though, a lot of the pieces and parts to this were geared towards only a certain type of learning, though. And so while all students, we agreed that all students were capable of that learning, we put things in place that said, this is how you will learn. And started, in a lot of ways, limiting students. This is, for those who don't know, this is what we call Bloom's taxonomy, and this kind of categorizes our learning. And what really happens, the great learning really happens in this upper part. We call it higher order thinking. And the creating, evaluating, and analyzing is really where we want to get our students. But it requires them to remember and understand facts and figures. In the early 90s, what happened was we shifted our assessments to check on the bottom, and so how did you teach?
Oh, it was strictly by rote, memorization, regurgitation.
Here's the most important thing, tell me it back.
Yep,
Here's the most important thing, tell me it back. And we become so focused on those pieces that we kind of forget that there's all these other skills that we want our students to have. And that's where we are trying to shift back to where we're not focusing on a list of things everybody has to know, but what are they going to do with that information once they have it? So we get this kind of this laser focus approach to education where we're trying to get all the students to remember the same things. And we get really fixated on just certain little pieces of education rather than the big picture. And it causes us to change how we teach. It causes students to be frustrated and not really have a great learning experience. They may know how to play the game of school, but they're not experiencing those things.
I would say we could ask the question, who was the first president of the United States? Fine. But I think a better question would be is, why was George Washington selected to be president of the United States at that time? Now that forces a student to go much deeper rather than just who was he. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think they're with us.
I hope so.
Let's see. We're going to have you do a little experiment with us.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have your part?
I do.
So I do. We're going to need you to take a picture or a video of us.
So what we would like you to do is take out your cell phones, and what we're going to ask you to do is we're talking about paradigms and frames of reference. So we want you to take your cell phones out, and put it on, take a photo, all right? Okay? And what we want you to do, and I want you to think about that frame is how you're seeing the world, okay? So what we're going to do is on the count of 3, you can take your photos. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, another one. Just keep them up there.
Just another one.
Just keep them right there.
Just
yeah.
there. We got
Go
it.
ahead.
We got
Keep
it.
it right here.
Okay. All right. Good.
Right here.
Good. Got any more? Any more?
A couple more. Keep them going.
Any more? You want to take the whole movie?
Keep
the
filming.
Whole movie? Okay.
Keep
all right.
filming.
Okay.
That's
I feel like I should break into a Groucho imitation.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Very good.
okay. Was that good?
That was good.
Okay.
A few people saw.
How many of you noticed our friend come out on the stage? Raise your hand. We got quite a few that missed it.
We got about
a
half.
couple of them going, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
How many of you, raise your hand really high if you saw our friend come out. Okay? Friend, come on back out if you would.
Sasquatch.
Round of applause for our Yeti here.
Mr. Abominable. Thank you. There was a famous test called the invisible gorilla test, and you just check it out on YouTube. And many times people do not see the obvious. You're supposed to count how many times this ball is passed, and then somebody in a gorilla costume walks through, and really half the people never see it. You know, so how often do we look at the world and really not see something else? We're so busy focused on something else.
And our classrooms end up being that way, where we're so focused on the one objective that we have to get that we missed all the authentic, relevant pieces that are happening all around us at that time, in that moment. And we really start to miss what's really happening. This picture went viral pretty quickly. We've got this nice old lady here in the middle. Everybody is taking their time, taking the photo of what's happening, and she's getting the whole experience. She's seeing the Yeti walk by. She's experiencing it very differently than those around her. And the grin on her face shows she's pretty happy about that. What happens in our learning is we become so fixated on some of those facts and figures that we forget how to use that information. Why is that information important? Till the gong? Okay, we're doing good. And so the whole idea being, we want our students to experience their learning, not just check off the block of all the things that they need to learn. Okay, so
Are we
you wanna
ready to
check on
solve
them?
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I told them to think like the roof of a barn. Okay.
I don't know.
No,
that they've
that's
seen a
not
barn.
it. Do you want us to show you? Okay. All right,
Okay, you
here
ready?
it is. You ready? Here it is. Yeah. It's really clever, isn't it? Yeah.
Now,
So using it as your model, see if you can do that. Make that happen.
as we were preparing for this and talking back and forth, Chuck brought up this idea of the nail thing, and as soon as he said it, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And I didn't know where I learned it. I didn't know who I learned it from, but I can only imagine it was
It was in my class.
in his class, because
Yeah.
I don't know of anyone else that's done it.
It's all about problem solving.
But here we are a lot of years later. We don't need to say how many, but a lot of years later, and I still remember that type of learning because it was an experience. It wasn't just a fact or figure. It was connected to what was going on.
So
Keep going.
really, schools should be in the dream business. We should be in the business of making dreams come true for our students. That's what we need to be doing. Schools should be student-centered, not teacher-centered. Thank you. Schools should be a place where we discover and experiment, and we feel safe doing that. And schools should be, finally, important to the entire community. If they don't follow, if they're not all these things, we fail, I think, as a school. Well, thank you.
As Fort Thomas schools, and especially Highlands, as we continue to move forward and try to figure out how do we best prepare our students for what comes next, you'll hear lots of things about Portrait of a Graduate and the skills and attributes that our students need, and we want you to be aware that we're teaching the kids all the stuff they've always learned, and we're going to make sure that they're prepared. We have one short little video. We're going to let the teachers go and get to their classrooms and get set up for you, but we have one quick video to show you. If we'll make sure that's unmuted and ready to go.
Nobody's born smart. We all start at zero. Can't talk, can't walk, certainly can't do algebra. Adding, reading, riding a bike. Nobody's good at anything at first. There was a time when Einstein couldn't count to 10. And Shakespeare had to learn his ABCs just like the rest of us. Thankfully, we're born to learn. Slowly, surely, you stumble, slip, crawl, fall, and fail and fall. Frustrating, confusing, trying, struggling, until one day, you walk. One foot in front of the other, one idea on top of the next, each wrong answer making your brain a little bit stronger. Failing is just another word for growing, and you keep going. This is learning. Knowing that you'll get it, even if you haven't gotten it yet. Because the most beautiful, complex concepts in the whole universe are built on basic ideas that anyone, anywhere, can understand. Whoever you are, wherever you are, you only have to know one thing. You can learn anything.
And we're not commercial or advertising Khan Academy by any means, but the principle there that anyone can learn, and you can learn anything is the message that we want our students to leave here with, that they're learning how to be learners more than they're learning how to tell you the facts and figures of all these things. We're excited about where this school year is heading, where it's already been, and where we're going, and we're so glad that we have supportive parents like you who are here to help and push your students to the next level. Thank you for coming tonight, and enjoy the next portion of our open house as you go and see your teachers. Thank you.